Hi friends, it's Terry Stewart, Independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, located in Central Maryland. Welcome to this edition of Bundle Bonus, where we share lots of ideas of a single bundle. This month, the bundle bonus is the Cup of Tea bundle, which is a stamp set and dice, coordinating die set. So let's jump right in, because there's a lot of stamping fun waiting for us. So here is the Cup of Tea bundle. It has a photopolymer stamp set with all these beautiful stamps, teacups, floral images, ferns, lemon even, a tea bag, a little tag on the tea bag, plus these great sentiments. I mean, enjoy, sweet, thank you, take care of yourself, friendship. I mean, there's just a lot going on with this stamp set. And then we have the teacup dies, which has two teacups, has some dies that match the stamped images, like this fern here. There's a fern, the flowers, these flowers, you can cut those out, the lemon, the floral spray here. But then there's other ones with this heart, these three little hearts, another heart, little tiny tea bags, which is smaller than that, so you can layer. I mean, it's a lot of fun. Oh, speaking of layering, there's this lemon, and then you can put a little wedges on top of it. Super cute. Now this is found in the annual catalog, this bundle, on page 12 and 13. So you can see the Tea Boutique. It is a collection, so you can get even more than the bundle. There's coordinating DSP on envelopes and card bases, which are here. And these are standard size of 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 is the finished size for those. And you can see the beautiful colors that are in this suite. And speaking of the suite, here is the DSP, the Tea Boutique, and I've been just having a blast with this. You can see all my little pieces because I've just loved it. There's teacups, teapots, florals with teacups, florals with teapots, lemons, there's little slices. Let's see if there's florals, and here's a floral one, teapots, and then yeah, a lot going on. So this is the pattern I'm going to use today. So I'm going to take this out, and then I'm going to share with you the card that I'm going to make. So let me just tuck this back, set this aside, and here's my DSP that I'll be using, and here's my card. So it's actually using this teacup and the reverse side, and I don't know if you noticed, but in the catalog, one of the card bases are of the same pattern. So that's pretty neat. So here I've used the DSP that has the teacups. I've die cut a teacup. I've die cut the image, this overlay on it, stamped some teacups, and then on the inside I stamped another teacup. So let's me bring in the DSP. Well, I have the DSP here. These beautiful teacups. I have some scraps that I'm going to be using for some die cutting. So the white is going to be used for this contour, scallop contour die. We have Starry Sky that I'm going to use for my teacup die. Parakeet Party that I'm going to use for the overlay. And then I'm going to stamp and fussy cut this Let's Get Together Soon. So I'm going to do die cutting there, but before that, I'm bringing my cardstock. So this is my layer for the inside. This is 4 by 5 1/4, or for our metric friends, that'd be 10 by 14.4. And now I'm going to bring in my cardstock so we can cut that. So the first layer we're going to do is my card base, and this is Starry Sky, and I'm going to cut this. So I'm taking a whole sheet of cardstock and I'm cutting it in half at 5 1/2 and that would be at 14.9 for a metric. And then I'm going to score it at 4 1/4, which is 10.5 centimeters. So that's our card base. And now I'm going to cut my parakeet party. I'm going to cut this just a smidgen smaller than 5 1/2. So that would be 5 3/8 inches. And for our metric friends, that would be 14.6. And then I'm going to rotate it and cut at 4 1/8, which would be 10.2 for our metric friends. And now I'm going to cut my DSP. And this is where I'm going to do several cuts on this. Now I want this to be 4 inches, and because I have this pattern and my card's portrait, I'm going to put the 4 inches on this side of the pattern. So 4 inches, which is 10 centimeters. And then I'm going to rotate that and cut that at 5 1/4, which would be 14.4 centimeters. And now that I have this piece, as I said, I'm using the back of it. I'm going to cut it corner to corner. So I'm going to put my corners on the cutting track and then cut on the diagonal. And I'm going to carefully rotate this. And I'm going to line up my teacups again so that they are basically in the same position, that they don't slide. And then again, I'm going to put the corners of my DSP on my cutting groove. Make sure that my teacups are lined up. And then I'm going to cut on the diagonal. And there we end up with 4 triangle pieces. So now we can assemble this card. So I have the smaller triangles on top and bottom like this, and then these larger teacups, the larger triangles, I'm going to rotate those and put it like that. So it becomes that's the pattern, and I'm going to adhere that to the front of my parakeet party with some liquid glue. So let me set all this aside and bring in my liquid glue. You can see these colors. So here, this teacup here is in Starry Sky, and then you have that parakeet party over on this other side. And I'm just going to put a thin bead of glue all around and in the center. And this will help me manipulate if I need to replace or move it around. So I'm going to butt the edges up right together, and I'm trying to get the same distance on the right hand and left hand corners. I think you can see on this corner and this corner the same amount of cardstock peeking out. And I'm going to rotate it and do the same. So I'll put a little thin bead of liquid glue, and the same thing. I'm going to butt the ends up, right the edges up, and then kind of try to get the same distance of cardstock showing on the corners. And that's pretty close. And now we can bring in our DSP for the sides. And the same thing, I'll be laying these DSP in here. Looks nice. So this time I'm putting the adhesive, the glue on the back side, running a thin little bead. That might be a little bit too much. There we go. I think I work better this way, where the edge is towards me. And then slide that edge in there. And it looks fabulous. Those patterns go together so well. And then just repeat this glue. And it definitely does work better to have the edge towards me. So I can see if any's peeking out or if I've gone over that. Okay. And the glue gives a little bit, so you can slide it if you find that you missed the edge. That's another good thing about having some liquid glue. So for die cutting, I'm going to bring in, I'm using the scallop contour dies, and that's this scallop piece. And it kind of looks like maybe a lace tablecloth. It's the middle die I'll be using. And then for my teacup dies, I'm using 2 dies from this. I'm doing the large teacup, and then this one here, this one that does an overlay that'll give us our kind of floral or ferny look. So we'll do that in Parakeet Party. And this solid teacup in Starry Sky. These colors to me remind me of, you know, football season's coming up, and they remind me of the Seattle Seahawks colors, their team colors. And then the scallop contour dies. So let me take these over to my cut and emboss machine and do some die cutting, and I'll be right back. Following my die cutting, I have my scalloped contour die cut, which I'm going to stamp on, my solid Starry Sky teacup, my Parakeet Party overlay, which I'm going to glue these together. But first I'm going to do some stamping. So I'm going to stamp on my die cut, I'm going to stamp my sentiment on this piece of scrap, and I'm going to stamp on my insert. And if I had my envelope handy, I'd be stamping the same thing on that. So here is my Parakeet Party ink and this solid teacup. Well, it's got stripes on it, so I'm going to ink this up, and I have them kind of at an angle going up. So I'll stamp from the bottom, and then I'm going to rotate it. I ink it up again, rotate it, and again stamp right on my die cut. I'll put the same image on my insert. On the corner, and I would use this if I had my envelope handy. I would stamp on my envelope too. So that is all the Parakeet Party ink. The next thing I'm going to stamp is my sentiment in Memento Tuxedo Black, and I'm doing Let's Get Together Soon. So this would be a card I would send to my friends that I like to go out and have tea with. I don't just in general like to go out, but we do like to have tea together. So that's kind of where I'll be sending this card to my tea-loving, tea-drinking friends. Bring in my paper snips, and I'm going to fussy cut this out. And I cut with my right and steer the cardstock with my left, kind of keeping my snips in the same direction, not really changing the angle, and let the paper move around, not my snips. Perfect. I love using little scraps like that. So now let's assemble our teacup. bring back my liquid glue, and I'm going to put little dabs of glue around this stamped image, and little, just barely touching these edges, putting a thin bead of glue, just a little bit, so it doesn't show through. Bigger spots, more glue, and then just making sure I dab these edges to tack it down. Now, carefully turn it over and line up the edges. And again, this is where liquid glue comes in handy, because it does give you some forgiveness to move it around before it's completely dried. Right. Now this one is sticking up a little, if you can see that. So I'm going to bring in a scrap of cardstock and put a little dab of glue on the end, and then I can just slide this under, get a little piece, little glue on that, and be able to tack it down. So you don't have to be perfect when you're doing the glue dabbing. You can go back and secure that. All right, and now I'm gonna put some dimensionals behind this. So when we popped up, I think it just adds a little interest to have that up a little bit. And I want to put some on this teacup handle, so I'm going to cut the edge, a narrow little piece here, and stick that right behind my teacup. Okay, and I lost the cover for that, so be careful it doesn't adhere to anything. And then it turns over. Maybe I need one more at the top. That makes my heart happy. Okay. And the next part, I'm going to bring in my soft seafoam seam binding ribbon, and this is beautiful, shimmery, light, delicate ribbon. I'm going to tie that, a piece of it, towards the bottom of this die cut that I've stamped on, and I'm just tying a knot. Hold it in the center, bring over. And I tie off my spools instead of cutting it, because I either cut way too much or it's short, and for me this just works out, and I feel like I'm not wasting ribbon. So there's my bow, and I can snip with my paper snips. And I'm going to do it at an angle this way, and repeat that same angle on this one. And I put this a little to the right hand side of my die cut. And now we can start assembling this card. So here is my card base, and I scored it, and now I'm going to burnish on that score line just to have it flatter, so it doesn't pop up so much. It'll lay flat, and I'm going to adhere this. Now I did not put an inside greeting, because I will personalize the invitation and the note when I send this. I'll just put a personal note in there. I invite my friend to come have tea with me or meet me for tea. So that's the inside, and now we can take our front panel that we created, and I want to make sure that when I glue this down that I have my teacups going in the right direction. I've had a couple mishaps this week where I've tried to glue things in the wrong position. So it'll have a very narrow border. And again, I can move this over just a tad. There we go. So now it's centered properly. And I'm going to just adhere this down, this piece down with, again, with some liquid glue. And I want to center it, top and bottom, left and right, and I'm just eyeballing this up. I think that looks about right. Maybe bring my ribbon down a little bit. No, that's fine where it is, right? Yeah. There we go. Now I'm happy with it. And my little teacup, take all these dimensionals off. And this one, I tilted the two that I stamped, and this one I'm going to have just straight. Kind of shows, and I'm going to put it a little bit to the left so that you can see the teacup handles. And the last piece is my sentiment, and I'll put some dimensionals on that. So I'll bring in my mini dimensionals again. I'll probably do 3, kind of in a triangle. That will secure it nicely and it won't sag in the middle. And here we go. Let's get together soon. I'll put that right above the ribbon. There we go. All right, there's the finished product. Visit my blog for more information, stampinghair.blogspot.com, about this card. I'll blog about it. Subscribe to my channel so I can bring you even more fun stamping projects. And until next time, remember, stamping is fun. Bye.